Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in and checking out the new video. This is an interview that I did earlier this month with my friend Dan Mahaney from Apricot Music and from Danarchy Unplugged as well as Mephisto. Um, Sorry it took so long to get it out, but there's a lot of editing because when you get together with one of your old friends, you end up bullshitting for quite a while. So there's going to be like some choppiness throughout the video. The important thing is that I kept everything that I wanted to keep in there to kind of highlight what Dan has going on and a little less about me and him bullshitting about our friendship throughout the years. So check it out. I hope you guys enjoy it. This is part one of two. There will be a second video coming within the next week or so. Just because it was so long, we covered so much ground. So thank you guys for being patient. Welcome to the Snake Pit. Enjoy. So we're finally here with Dan at, is it Apricot or Apricot?
I say apricot. I think you can pronounce it however you want.
Well, he's the face that run the place, so, you know, it's Apricot. Here with Dan Mahaney, owner, operator of Apricot Studios. And I've been corrected a few times since we've been shooting the shit that it's not Mephisto, it's Mephisto. There's no M. Yeah, he's the brains behind that operation. So, Dan, how's it going today, man?
It's going great, man. Sitting here shooting the shit with you.
Yeah, been a while.
Fuck yeah, man.
So let's kick right into it right now. What made you first decide, like, music? Yeah, that's where it's at, man.
Probably back in the 80s, you know, when I was growing up.
80s.
You know, back in the 80s, dude. And I think I was listening to old school Motley Crue. You know, Motley Crue. From there, I was really into Motley Crue. And then I was like 12 years old. I got my first guitar. So we got my guitar teacher back then. We bought the guitar off the guitar teacher, and I took lessons at the convent.
The nuns.
Where the nuns are.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Be nice to the nuns. They'll teach you how to play metal.
Motley Crue, started listening to Pantera, Metallica, you know, everything.
Pretty much the
Megadeth.
Standard path every metalhead took. You get your introductory band,
Yep.
and then you just end up. As you were a musician, like you played music, like you were into playing guitar. What actually made you pursue being a sound engineer?
I really thought it would be a fun thing to do. After I graduated high school, I went to the recording workshop in Ohio, which was kind of a tech school, for about 6 weeks right after I got out of high school. After that, they taught you a bit about recording live sound, a little bit too, and stuff like that. But really what I ended up finding out, it's like the real world, getting your hands in and doing stuff that you learn, because that's all just what they teach is books, you know, the theoretical end of things, you know.
It's like the only way to learn how to rock is to go out there and
do it. Yeah,
like
you can read a book all day long, but you got to get your hands in and do it, because there's so much shit that you just only can learn from experience. So after I was done at the Ohio school, I wrote a business plan to open a studio in Scranton, PA. I moved to Scranton, PA. I wrote a business plan for opening a studio. I had the whole thing set up. I was going to get a $20,000 loan, business loan. I had to write a business plan for the whole thing, working with the Scranton Business Development Center. And I had my hopes really set on opening that studio in Scranton right after high school in the tech school. And I got denied for the loan. And I was a bit crushed. I was very crushed, man. And then, you know, years later, like looking back on that, I realized that it was a blessing in disguise at the time, because I would have failed, because I had no experience at the time. like trying to get all that gear,
right.
taking all that gear, all that money, and buying a whole bunch of gear because you really got to learn your gear kind of one piece at a time anyway. It would have been learning
To like really understand what each piece does and how it affects the recording.
exactly. Yeah, really like study every piece you get. So I really kind of grew this whole thing organically over the years, and it took me all those years to realize like it's a good thing that it didn't happen then.
No, I can definitely understand that, and I think a lot of people out there can understand. Like, sometimes when you don't get exactly what you want right off the bat, and it also just goes to show like the work ethic that people put into this kind of thing. Like, well, I got denied. Like, what are you gonna do? Go go home and pout, or are you gonna
Right.
well, back to the drawing board. Let's do what we can with what we got and take it from there.
Yeah,
And
especially as a young kid, as a young punk, I was like, okay, I want to do this right now. I want to jump right into it head first. And then it's like, no, you kind of gotta learn to walk before you learn to run.
that's just great advice in anything that you're chasing down. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you think about it, like you mentioned Motley Crue earlier, in the '80s, like all these bands were getting signed to labels one right after another. These dudes that were like street kids that just started playing in small clubs, and next thing you know, you're putting these dudes on the road in these big arena tours as an opening act, and they completely self-destruct
Right.
because you went from the poorhouse to the penthouse immediately.
Yeah.
See, I think a lot of that has to do with you don't have time to appreciate everything that you've done, like just getting it handed to you, as opposed to like, look, I worked really hard, and it also builds a like you're a better sound engineer because you had to cut your teeth on that.
Absolutely,
Like you
man.
actually gave a damn and put forth
Yeah.
a ton of effort to get here.
Yeah.
And which brings me to the next topic is like it's a small living room studio that you're running right now. Like the first time I ever worked with you was back in the Beaver Squeezer days.
In the shed.
Up in yeah, it was a shed, which
Yeah.
was full. Like you did your
I
vocals.
missed the shed. The shed was fun times.
The shed is the first experience I ever had in a recording studio. Like
Yeah.
you're cutting vocals in a dome tent
If you could call
outside.
it, if you could really call it that, it was a shed with some equipment and me figuring out what I'm doing. That's pretty much it.
But like I've also worked in like full blown studios that have isolation booths and gotten the same. I wouldn't say the same results, but you get a very comparable result to either the shed
Yeah.
or the living room, and it actually is a testament to what you said about knowing your equipment. Like you
Yeah.
know how to work your equipment and work with what you have.
It forces you to be better. It
Absolutely.
really does, because when you don't have the ISO booths, you learn more about your mic placement and how important that is, and other things like that.
For example, turning your stack up against the wall with the mic hanging over
yeah,
top of
just
it.
little things like that you learn about how to do things. You got to learn things kind of the hard way, and then and that makes you all that much better.
Now, do you prefer the shed or do you prefer the living room, nice, warm, comfy
I miss the
computer?
shed. I miss the shed, but let me tell you what I really like about this is the convenience of this. Having this home studio pretty much right. I mean, it is. It's in my living room, so it's so convenient when I want to do some mixing, working on a project, doing some mixing. I don't have to go outside and out to the shed. Like the winter time really sucked for that. I had to shovel a path out to there. But
I've recorded in
just
there
that.
in the wintertime. It's awful.
Yeah, yeah, and the summertime's even worse because of the
Oh.
heat, dude.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Anytime I want to sit down and do mixing or things like that,
Cool.
and it's just right here. I think it's more convenient for the musicians too, because
So not
It's
only do you
easier
have a bunch of studio work that you do, Dan, you actually worked for a couple of live sound companies in the area.
yeah, I have a guy that I help out. It's Chicken Hill Sound, and I've been working with Animal Cronenwetter for I think about 15 years now, and that's really he's really taught me a lot. I consider him my but mentor. It's odd that he's live sound and I'm doing studio stuff. So for him to be my mentor, it's more of a broad range. It's more of a broad thing, because you use the same tools, but in a kind of a different way.
Yeah, no,
You know?
I completely, I can vouch for Animal knowing his way around because in the earlier days, back in the Beaver Squeezer days, we worked with Animal a few times. He ran sound for us,
Well,
and just like the dude has an ear for it. It was just straight up top notch. You get a great sound.
well, not only that, I mean, even before you and me started working with him, he's old school, man. He's been doing this forever, man. Way before you and me ever even knew him. So
And
he's very wise with it all.
did you see how we were saying nice stuff about the live sound guy? Because as a musician, you don't piss your live sound guy
Yeah,
off.
that's right.
He's what makes and breaks you
Yeah.
out at a gig. Like,
If you piss off your sound guy at a live gig, he's just gonna push that mute button. He don't
yeah,
give a fuck, man.
yeah, there goes the show.
No, AK would never do that.
No, he's professional.
I would never do that either.
But like, always be kind to your sound guy.
I've heard of like really like disgruntled live sound guys that will do stuff like that, and you shouldn't do that.
Insane.
But just be nice to your sound guy. I think that's the point. Right?
Yeah. So now working with live sound, how do you apply that in the studio? Like you said, how you're using the same tools, but it's a completely different animal.
Mm-hmm.
How do you apply that in here? Because a lot of bands, like me personally, when I'm in a studio, I want the end result to be like you listen to this CD or you download that song on the internet, it'd be like you're seeing me live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what I shoot for. So how do you apply that to what you're doing in here? Or how does it help? Or how does it take away or
there's
help?
some similarities and there's some differences, because I'd say, okay, when you're doing live sound, there's always that sound coming from the stage, like the stage volume. There's always going to be the natural drums there. There's always going to be the guitar amp is already there. So it's really enhancement. You know, that's why they call it sound, what is the word? Like sound reinforcement, because you're reinforcing what's already there. But in the studio, there's none of that. Whatever you capture with the mics is what's going to come back through the speakers. So there's no there's no recreation. I mean, I guess it is, I worded that wrong. What it is recreation.
Would you say it's a lot
I
easier?
fucked up what I'm saying.
Yeah, would you say So would you say it's a lot easier to do it in here than it is out there live? Because you do have so much more control over the mics and over the sound than, like, because when you're live, you got that amp plowing you in the face. When you're in here, you can actually direct in, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
really. So
I wouldn't say it's easier. I would say it's kind of a different animal.
more controlled in this environment than it is live?
More control, but you have to create that control by isolating your tracks in the studio.
So you're taking
I guess that's what I was saying before, is that in the live sound, it's more of adding to what's already there, but in the studio, it's controlling what you have and controlling it so that in the long, because when you in the studio, when you make that mix, that's the way it's going to be heard every single time. But live sound, it's a fleeting moment. It's there and it's gone that same second. You hear the sound and it's gone. So it's a real experience for the audience. But in the studio, it's you're creating this, and this is how it's going to be heard forever.
I like how you worded that. It's an experience.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
That's a really good way of saying it.
There's almost a whole different dimension in live sound, you know. There's like, it's happening right there and now, man, you know.
Absolutely. Well, even
where you don't get a second shot at,
as opposed to practice to performing live from a musician standpoint, there ain't nothing like that live show feel. That's seriously where it's at.